Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America. In the raid, More Than a Body Ought to Bear by Robert J. Rosenbaum, a DEA raid on a dairy in Colorado's western slope proves to be a disaster for the dairyman, Jake Grummond. No drugs were found, but he ultimately loses the farm and his wife suffers a mental breakdown. In addition, he has no recourse to obtain damages. Jake's pursuit of compensation and to learn who provided the false tip leads ultimately to a shootout with the drug dealers. Meanwhile, Sheriff C.W. Blakenship, who is also suspicious of the raid, is conducting his own investigation. The two are locked in a dance neither recognizes until the bullets fly. Robert Rosenbaum spent his first 10 years in Portland, Oregon, followed by years in New England and a year in England. Over 25 years in Texas, has now lived in the Colorado's western slope for 24 years. Along the way, acquired a BA from Yale and a PhD in history. He's been at various times a construction worker, laborer, house painter, and roofer, political speechwriter, chief of a volunteer fire department, and manager of a mountain community forest, among other jobs. Robert J. Rosenbaum, author of the riveting, critically acclaimed novel The Raid, More Than a Body Ought to Bear, is our guest on This Week in America. Robert, welcome to the program. A pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you.
Looking forward to talking about this book. What a story you tell here. Why did you write the raid? Where did this idea come from?
Well, it came from an actual raid. I was driving. I lived in Austin, Texas, but had already bought land in the mountain, and coming up to see how the construction on my cabin was going. It was Labor Day weekend. And my brother and his wife lived on a farm in Olathe. And I was going to see them, and I stopped at a mutual friend's house en route to theirs, very close to theirs, and to get a beer, actually, what I stopped for. And all the people, it was they tended, it was a Friday afternoon, and they tended to have a lot of the neighbors gather for an end of the week beer there. And all they were talking about was the raid at the Gret Dairy the couple of days before. And I thought that was interesting, and it was a dramatic raid with DEA and local authorities both, and they treated the help, which is primarily Mexicans, very poor, and in fact brought in the INS and everything, and a lot of them got shipped back to there. And the raid had taken place right at milking time. Some of the hands were handcuffed to the stanchions and so forth. I had worked in dairy farms when I was a lot younger, and I knew that interrupting the milking schedule was not a good thing for a dairy.
Yes.
This thing, it turned out, had the raid occurred just a little before Labor Day, and it took the owner, Jess Gret, until the new year to get his production back up to what it had been before the raid. Now, this was a DEA raid. They found no drugs. So the question then became, what if it was even worse? What if the raid was even worse? Well, I was living in Austin, Texas at the time, writing speeches for the land commissioner. And in that environment in Austin, it's no surprise that there was no shortage of lawyers.
Yes.
I was talking. What this was in 1994. What was what means of recourse would an injured party have for a raid proved to be baseless? And they said very little, because the there have been some protections put in since that time, but very little. The dominant theory at the time was the legal theory was the doctrine of sovereign immunity, which comes from the British common law. And it says the king can do no wrong. And the police authorities would be acting at the king's behest, so they could do no wrong. It was up to them to do it, to use their expertise,
Yes.
to do things, law, legal theory. So here you have someone who ultimately, and then I just thought, well, maybe I can write this up the ways. And that's how the book got started. And what it did, which I didn't realize I was going to do at the time, was it launched the whole Western Slope Mystery Series.
That's just, you can find all of the titles in all of Robert's books on his website, robertjrosenbaum.com. That's ROSENBAUM, robertjrosenbaum.com. Books at Amazon, UR Link Publishing, all of the places. This is interesting. It's really a chilling story of government overreach, of police action based on a fact, on something that really happened. It's a remarkable story that's so well told by Robert Rosenbaum, our guest on the program. Mentioned the first in the Western series. Why did you write the series? How did it go from one book to a whole series of books?
Well, as I said, first, I have always read this novel, and I got to liking the characters, Blakenship and Grummond particularly. Understand this is all fiction. Western Slope is primarily fictional in terms of names of places. So, some actual places names, actual people names, mostly not. And as I said, I liked the characters, and I wanted to continue working in this form. And so I started with another book called The Bank Job, which uses its point of departure a real robbery in Creede, Colorado. And one thing led to another. So then I just started off with and I'm not as prolific as Lee Child is, or John Sanford, or those fellows, but it's I keep coming up with new ideas.
Yeah, you are maintaining a strong pace in all of those in the Western Slope Mystery Series, available at Robert's website, as I say. And we've got a link on our website that will take you directly to his website and his Amazon page as well. When you write about stories based in fact in that area, when you are familiar and live in the area you talk about, did using the area where you live cause any negative reaction from the residents there?
I have yet to get a negative reaction. In fact, I'd say that folks, most of my sales are people in the area. But one of the things that I always thought about, much, I want to say ethno history, but that may be too much. Certainly travel literature. You want what Ian Rankin, the Scottish author of the Inspector Rebus series, called A Sense of Place. You know, I wanted to embed the stories in what I think is an actual description of some aspects of Compadre Valley and the Western Slope.
Well, you do an excellent job in bringing it to life for all of us. Our guest is Robert Rosenbaum, coming to us via Skype from his home, and you can see the video by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. The video's there. In your background, you've done academic history that you've written, as well as now the popular mystery series. Why did you switch from the academic to the novels, to the mysteries?
Well, because as I said, I've always been read this form for recreation, but I call it detective novels. I wanted to try my hand at it because I've been writing a great deal for most of my life, but you generally either academic or political speeches and things like that. And this is something I can do with minimal research as compared to doing history, and a lot more fun. You know, I mean, I hate to say that because I'm proud of history, and I have a lot of friends who still have a lot of friends who are historians, but it is more fun. You can adjust things in ways that you can't do when you're trying to analyze a period of actual things.
Yeah, this is a world that you've created, and you do such a wonderful job of bringing that up and letting us get a sense of what it's like in the Old West. In the New West there as well. Robert Rosenbaum, our guest on the program. What kinds of fiction do you read? Who do you enjoy reading?
I enjoy detective stories like people such as Peter Bowen, who unfortunately has passed away now, but his series about Gabriel Dupre, the brand inspector in Montana. What I enjoy most about that is its depiction of kind of the meshing of cultures. Gabriel Dupre is a Métis. And you know what the Métis are?
Oh, yes, yes.
You do know.
Well, explain explain for people.
Yeah, they're the product of the French voyageurs, fur trappers, and the Cree Indians. So it's a kind of a mixed cultural thing there. Owen does a very good job of that. And I like Tony Hillerman's stories with the Navajo police officers. And but I like most of that. I enjoyed Ian Rankin's Detective Rebus series. I enjoyed Peter Robinson's Inspector Banks series, and Rankin is set in Scotland. Robinson is set in the north in Yorkshire, England. And those, I guess, I enjoy them very much. I enjoy the depictions of the people and places, and I enjoy the plot line as well. That's one of the satisfying things about this kind of this genre is that you tend to get a happy ending.
Yes.
in it, which in real life doesn't happen quite as often.
Doesn't happen as often. You're exactly right. Our guest in the program is Robert Rosenbaum. Information on all of his books at his website, Robert J. Rosenbaum, ROSENBAUM.com. Books available, Amazon, urlinkpublishing.com, usual places, links on our website. A couple minutes left in the program. Your background in history, your background as a speechwriter, does that help you in writing mysteries?
Well, you know how you get a lot of practice writing in both of those, and I like to think it's just maybe patting myself back, but I like to think that my prose is fairly smooth. I don't know that it's dramatic, colorful, but it flows. In fact, one of my professors in graduate school said it marches.
Interesting.
At least having to put words on paper, various formats for so long, certainly hasn't hurt. Now, of course, I'm a biased observer on my own work. So maybe.
Well, I think others would agree with that. So you can say that, and then we're nodding in agreement on how it flows. The copy marches. I've got a very short period of time left, but I want to ask you at the end. You create all these mysteries, and you do such a remarkable job, and you solve all of these mysteries. Are you ever tempted to be a real life? A lot of jobs you had in the past. Could we add like private detective to that as well at some point?
I've never felt like doing it myself, but a fellow resident when I was living up in the mountains was a former deputy sheriff somewhere in Arizona. And he told me after reading The Raid that I should have gone into law enforcement.
Well, that's why.
Heck, I'm 80 years now. I mean, I'm not going to do that. I will say, though, when I was teaching here in Montrose, Colorado, one of my students was the patrol division commander of the Montrose police force, who had been a deputy sheriff when the actual raid that started the raid. He had gone along on that, and he read at least the first three and offered insights. He didn't want me to sign up to be a cop, though. He didn't say how I was going to help his patrol division.
Well, you give us good stories, and the book we're talking about specifically here today has been The Raid, More Than a Body Ought to Bear by Robert J. Rosenbaum. That is the first in the series, the first in the Western Slope Mystery Series. All of those online at his website, which is very simple, robertjrosenbaum.com. And are you working on, I think you were working on another one, aren't you, at the present time?
I just want to say, with the website, the guy who developed that for me left the period off of the J, so if you put the period in, it won't show up.
Okay, so yeah, and we've got that here. Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out in case you're just listening and trying to do that. It's just robertjrosenbaum.com, and we'll be checking for future books from Robert on his website. Robert, a pleasure having you with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey.
Our guest is Robert J. Rosenbaum. Information on his book, The Raid, and all of his books on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Back on today's program after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, associate producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, segment producer. Ben Watson, webmaster. Otto Bechet, director of engineering and TV production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, executive producer of This Week in America.